This is the Andrew Walsh podcast. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen. I really appreciate it. I'm praying you can take away something from this episode that brings value to your life. Make sure to subscribe to my podcast to stay up to date with the latest episodes, and please share with a friend if you feel you are getting something out of these episodes. You can also follow me on Instagram at @A_Walsh. Let's fire it off. All right, guys, how we doing today? Andrew Walsh here with you, feeling juiced and motivated because I have a fantastic guest speaker for you guys today. So this is Joe Semaan, otherwise known as Joe Coach. He's the founder of the Top Producer Academy and the creator of Domination Selling, one of the top sales coaches who has worked with hundreds of companies from all different industries, such as Bank of America and Microsoft. So how are we doing today, Joe?
Really good, man. Thanks for having me, buddy.
Thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're a very busy guy, and for you to come on this podcast really means a lot. And I think a lot of people are going to get some value. So I'm just going to start out with a quick prayer and we'll get fired off. So, dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this beautiful day. Thank you, God, for blessing Joe with the time to come on today's podcast. I'm praying for everyone today, no matter where they're at in life or what's going on, that they can take something of value from this podcast, that they'll leave feeling motivated and inspired. I'm praying, God, that you bless this conversation between Joe and I today, Lord, and just have this conversation be completely guided by your words, Lord, to help inspire and motivate someone who's listening out there today, Lord. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
That's awesome, dude. That's the first one that I've had where somebody started with a prayer.
Yeah. You know,
I'm proud of you for that. Keep it going.
Thank you, man. I mean, how many podcasts have you been on before?
You know, I held out and held out and held out. Just got stuck in my own busy web. But just in the past year, I want to say maybe 15 or 16.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, so you've done more than me. That's awesome. I mean, I always wanted to start with a prayer because, you know, in work and business, you know, there's always those kind of lines that you have to draw, like no politics, no religion. But I was like, man, if I'm starting my own podcast, I want to start with prayer, you know?
Yeah.
Kick it off. So one thing I wanted to talk about today, the whole podcast episode is going to be kind of about sales coaching and some of the strategies that you have, especially with COVID-19. Situations are a lot different. A lot of people are relying on social media and text for sales. But before we get into that, I kind of want the audience to know, who is Joe? You know, you have an amazing story that you kind of were living in your car, and then within a year you're making six figures. You know, who is Joe for everyone who's listening that maybe doesn't know who you are?
The kid with the lemonade stand.
Yeah.
One of those dudes.
I love it.
Yeah. I mean, the lemonade stand, I don't think I've told that story. I was, my kid days, I'm talking like little kid, for me was in the mid to late 80s. And I can still remember we had a drought one summer, really bad drought. It was across the whole country almost. It was like 100 degrees outside every day.
Wow.
And I kept telling my mom, like, make lemonade. I'm going to sell lemonade outside. And she was like, you can't go outside. It's 100 degrees out there. I'm like, that's exactly why I have to sell lemonade today.
Yeah.
And so forth. So I think, you know, coming from such a great family, lower middle class, hardworking family, kind of set the tone for me to never be too concerned, too overly concerned about money, to not ignore it, but at the same time know two things: put your faith in God, and somehow He'll direct you if you listen, which I've turned my ears deaf quite a few times in my life before. And the other one was, if you want something in life, go out and get it for yourself.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of what my dad's philosophy was. He was not very good at taking handouts, even when he was unemployed for 6 years during the recession, the Ronald Reagan recession. He found it very difficult to go and claim unemployment. He basically just did it for us. He didn't even want to do that.
Yeah.
You know, and he's from, my parents are from Lebanon. I was born and raised in Peoria, Illinois. And then from an early age, it was one sales job after another until I had my, sort of overnight move to California in 2002.
Okay.
And got into a sales job, as you know, right away. Used that job I ended up getting a job at a gym because I had experience as a fitness trainer. I also had experience in sales. I also had a degree in business by that time. So I wasn't exactly starting from scratch. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying? And that probably contributed to my confidence, let alone I've heard my dad tell the story of how he came to America with $100 in his pocket like 10,000 times.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, I got 150.
Yeah.
So,
I should be pretty
you know,
good, you know?
yeah. So I just, hit the road, moved out here, and I decided to get a job at a gym because I could work out, which was a priority for me. I was starting to notice now that I was a little bit more mature in my lower 20s, starting to notice that it had a very powerful chemical impact on my brain. And that would give me some, that would make me pretty resilient. So I wasn't exactly a little baby when I was sleeping in my car at night.
Yeah.
I was more so like, let me just wake up alive and I'm going to go at this again and show them what I got. And then in that environment, I met people. Those people introduced me to people, got a couple of phone calls here and there. And several months later, just through hustle, networking, and using every dollar I had to keep in touch with people and my parents, ended up getting recruited into the mortgage business. And during that time, it was just money was growing on trees. So
Oh,
we
yeah.
made it happen.
In the mortgage boom. I think that's awesome because, that's where I actually met you. For everyone who's listening, was at Equinox, and you and I feel like I was kind of really resonated with you because you were so nice to everyone who was working within the gym too. And I
Yeah.
didn't know that you had kind of started in there. And I think a lot of people, they look so far ahead of where they want to be, how much money they want to be making, but they don't realize, like, I'm in this exact position right now for a reason. How do I take the most advantage of it? How do I network? I mean, you were a huge networker. Can you kind of explain when you were working in the gym, living out of your car, how were you striking up conversations with members and getting to kind of know people and show, what you were all
I
about?
come from a family of storytellers, parents who were very, very social. They didn't have a lot of money, but it just seemed like we always had people over for dinner, like constantly had people over for dinner. And I also come from a family who's from the Middle East. My parents are from Lebanon.
Mm-hmm.
But I never really, when I became an adult, I really didn't understand discrimination and religion and all these things because my family always had all races, all colors, all religions in our house. So to me,
Yeah.
it wasn't a thing until I grew up and I'm like, what's up? What's wrong with these people? Like, why are they so
Yeah.
stupid?
Yeah.
Like, what's wrong with you people? Like, you don't get it, do you?
Yeah.
Who raised you? Who they program you with? But, and then, this is a great example right now. And I've been speaking all week, as you can tell. We'll get to that in a minute. But this is a great example right now during this, quote unquote pandemic thing, because you also start to notice, more acts of kindness coming out during tough times.
Yeah.
And I think no matter who you are, once tough times, tend to deflate your ego and you become much more willing to reach out for help. You become much more willing to make friends. In some regards, not everybody's like that. And so for me, it was like, I got to do two things. I got to start closing sales right away to prove to the organization who I am. And I said, and I have to become friends with every single person in this gym.
Yeah.
Because, they'll support me. It's kind of like that Gladiator, win the crowd and you shall have your freedom.
Oh, I love that. That's great. Yeah, that's one of my favorite movies,
Mm-hmm.
So that's really interesting too, kind of hearing your story right now, because you kind of mentioned it. We are in different times. There's a lot of uncertainty, and I think now more than ever, you're seeing these acts of kindness, and people are, putting out amazing content to motivate and to inspire.
Mm-hmm.
And, for anybody who gets the chance to go on your Instagram and check out your website, you have some fantastic testimonials from past clients and people that you've helped out, when do you kind of think that you started noticing you had these kind of gifts, these different talents and abilities?
I didn't think that it was some gift or ability until much later, but um, ever since I was a teenager, I took an interest in personal development. And I think it was because I was starting to realize that there was a lot of people who seemed to be making it that I just thought were regular people.
Yeah.
I'm like, they're just regular people. They're really nice people. Like if they're nice, we're nice. The only reason my parents didn't make it is because they came here at such a late age. And so it kind of became like common sense. But at the age of 18, 19, I think, I actually left sales temporarily because I was a full-time student in college and I wasn't a great student. And so I'm like, okay, I'm really passionate about sales, but it takes my attention away from school. So I took on my second passion, which was fitness. So I became a fitness trainer.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in the gym that I realized that almost completely forgetting about money, I was so passionate about teaching these people the things that I had learned and watching their bodies and their minds and their relationships and their confidence levels transform.
Yeah.
Like in a matter of weeks. I mean, I tell people like I have cured diseases and I have also created divorce.
Yeah.
Both through that, like a lot of other fitness professionals are healthcare.
Yeah.
Hospitals are sick care. And I have two nieces, adorable nieces, they're all growing up now. They are nurses. They're working right now full-time in hospitals, one in Detroit and one in Illinois. And they're awesome. They're like the most caring, girls ever. However, that's sick care, not health care.
Yeah, no, I can definitely resonate with that. I was a fitness trainer in college, played college sports my whole life. And that's one thing I love too about playing a sport too, like football, is the camaraderie. Like you're literally at one goal to win a game, working with people of all different races, ethnicities. The bond is so you don't even realize that, and I think also too with fitness, you're so right. It's your confidence, self-esteem. I've had fitness training clients who, just from them starting to lose a couple pounds or get a little bit more muscle definition, see some abs poking through, they're like, you know what, I'm at, and I go, yeah, I know the workouts are great. How's work going? Dude, well, I got a promotion. And it's kind of all correlated.
It's all tied in. It's all tied in. Now, listen, there are people who are completely out of shape that are successful.
Yeah.
But there's very, very few of those.
Yeah.
Very few. And sometimes what happens is they get addicted to that success because it creates the significance that they need to compensate for everything else.
Wow.
And I've seen that time and time again, where people are money driven and not health driven. And usually it's until they get a scare of some type that they start to realize, in their 40s, 50s or whenever, or a family member dies or something happens, so you see these two extreme situations. I call them the left and the right.
Yeah.
And the left and the right are very powerful forces, which means there's very few people thinking for themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's definitely why I wanted to start this podcast too, because I'm about balance, and I thought bringing you on is perfect too, because you're one of those mind, body, spirit guys. You try and stay very balanced, and it's led you to a lot of success. I kind of want to get into a little bit of like the sales strategies that you have, and then this is kind of a multifaceted question. I know you said you've been doing a lot of speaking this week, because I know sales has changed, and if you don't change and evolve with the times, you're going to get left behind. And especially right now with COVID-19, what kind of suggestions or advice could you offer in the realm of sales and what you've kind of been doing the last few weeks with everything going on?
So right now, it's kind of interesting because I've been preparing for a full transition to go online for a while.
Mm-hmm.
It's my clients in the market who is like, we'd rather have training in person.
Okay.
So now it's like,
Told you.
You don't have
Yeah.
a choice, bro. You know?
Yeah.
So log in, bro.
Yeah.
Right? And but I've been prepared for this. But when it comes to sales, you know, it's so funny because it just never fails, man. It never fails. Like I just took on another huge client. This one again in the mortgage industry. Really good company, really good brand, and even better people.
Yeah.
And when they start hearing about the results that I've created, it doesn't matter. Like I can say I've been to 20 billion companies. Everyone still is kind of like,
Yeah.
how does this work?
Yeah, of course. You're
You know, well,
naturally, you
I
put it
guess we're
out.
willing to try it and see if it works. I'm like, you can try it. I've been doing it
Yeah.
for 14 years, you know? Everybody thinks that they're the guinea pig. But the secret science was this, after going broke again, even more so, in 2008, after the last recession, I always tell people like, dude, we're going to go through a little recession. I'm like, don't forget that we've been doing this every decade or so. Like
Yeah.
I'm so furious with how people forget so fast.
Yeah.
Like, did you forget the real estate collapse? Did you forget that there were 900 foreclosures a week in Orange County alone? Did you forget? You know what I mean? And so, when the sun's out for too long, we forget the rain.
I love that
But,
expression.
but in general, I was like, man, I was already about a year and a half into my coaching career and just struggling to keep clients on board. I mean, some companies I was coaching secretly for free,
Mm-hmm.
just so that I could, again, be out there meeting people, practicing it, fine tuning it. I had gone through losing a house that year. I had gone through also an eviction from an apartment that year. I had gone from the living in the car situation to living like, uh, superstar,
Yeah.
to now crashing on the couch at a friend's apartment for a month or two.
Wow.
And during that time, I'm like, something ain't right. I'm like, like right now, there's a lot of, people out there who are like, something ain't right about this. Something ain't right about this. Right.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on here? And so, I called that, after I was going through all these companies and I would listen to, my level of paranoia was through the roof. Meaning, if I don't find a way to help these people beyond what I was doing when everything in the economy was easy, it was easy to pay me as a coach in a good economy. I could give you some advice, train your people for 6 or 7 months. Sales would go up just 10%. They loved it.
Yeah.
People in California also loved just saying, we have a coach, we have a this, we have a that. I
Mm-hmm.
have a trainer. I have you know what I mean? My mechanic, my yard person. We're like that. We're bougie.
Yeah.
And that it was easy during an easy economy. But when the economy took a crap, then all of a sudden everybody was like, I'm not sure if it's worth paying.
Yeah.
And what does that mean at the end of the day? That means the results are not significant enough
Yeah.
to pay you during tough times, bro.
Yeah. That's
Because I knew
tough to
thousands of
hear.
people.
Yeah.
I knew thousands of people by this time. I had been one of the top sales directors for a huge, popular mortgage company here in Orange County, and everybody knew us. So it wasn't a lack of relationships.
Yeah.
It was a lack of knowledge.
Wow. So I'm assuming in that tough time, you're like, how can I prove or show that this is worth valuable, the time, like this is really valuable,
Yeah.
what I'm teaching? Because I think especially now more than ever, you need to be honing up on your skills. You need to be learning new skills. You need to be adjusting with everything that's going on. And I know you had mentioned too, you've been working on going kind of all online platform
Mm-hmm.
before any of this had happened, so what do you think are some good strategies for anybody who's listening, no matter where they're at, if they're just in sales
Yeah.
in general, that you think
Well, sales is a good place to be, during these times, especially if you're good.
yeah.
But the main, one of the big, what I call the awakenings I had was because, in the new economy, a lot of people are referring to this as the new economy, which I started actually using the term new economy, quote unquote, about 8 years ago. After 2008, I decided this is going to be a new economy, meaning a lot of what that means for all of you out there who who all you hear is cliche phrases and just regurgitate them all the time. What it means is the rules have changed. A lot of the rules, a lot of the tactics, a lot of the closing skills that you learned out of books that have been rewritten 10 times have changed. That's why you keep reading them and buying these videos and watching these YouTubes, and your sales aren't going up. Now, if you're a starter, or it's kind of like somebody who's way out of shape, if I just tell them drink more water, they'll notice an impact.
Yeah.
But that's just to get you up to compete with the average Joe. But if you want to get the type of results that I've been getting from my clients, what it means is, about every industry I've been to, I would say about 50, depending on the industry, 50 to 80% of the conversation, meaning the words, techniques, questions, greetings, expressions, closing style, objections, overcoming rebuttals, you name it, have all been memorized by your customer.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're in this economy, in the new economy, they're sold 1,000 times more than they were before.
Yeah.
So imagine being a chick and getting hit on 1,000 times more.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to get
Defenses are up.
frustrated because you're seeing the same patterns over and over and over. And you're like, well, please stand out. Please, somebody stand out and have a more meaningful conversation with me.
Yeah.
And when a customer can no longer, this is the kicker that I noticed, when a customer can no longer really tell the difference between one sales agent or another, other than maybe their personality, which works sometimes, but it's not enough to double and triple your numbers. What they do is they price shop. I'll give you an example. Have you heard the rule, educate your customer?
Yeah.
When do you think that rule was created?
Probably way back when,
Before the internet.
Yeah.
Now, when you educate your customer on the quality of the product, this, that, and that's what you're using to build value, doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. That's what you're using to build value. You're overemphasizing the value of your product or service, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're actually inspiring a customer to go shop. You've actually just flipped on their shopping switch.
Yeah.
And they're going to go compare and this and that and make up a bunch of BS that they have 3 other offers, or they're talking to 2 other people, or whatever the case may be. And then the sales agent has no idea, because they're stuck in this matrix of this zombie-like bubble where they don't even think for themselves anymore. And they just use the same excuses that have been handed down to them. Buyers are shoppers, buyers are liars. Everybody wants a deal. Everybody shops online. And like, dude, you had a 30-minute conversation with this person and they said, no, man up. It's you.
Yeah. Yeah. I love this. I think it's so true, because I know, especially, I'll just tell this super quick story. I know when my wife and I got our first place, we went out looking to furnish it, right? And we're looking for a vacuum. And all of a sudden, without even thinking, she's on her phone looking up 2 different vacuums. One's $60, one's $30. She goes, oh, wow, this $30 vacuum has got 6,000 5-star reviews. Let's go with this. And for a second, Joe, I kind of pulled back and I was like, wait, this is for a $30 or $60 vacuum. Can you imagine what it'd be like for $1 million home or for a mortgage? Like, people are just going to shop online, So what strategies then do you have? So if it's not all about the product and it is more on the salesperson, what are some things that you think help, or for people listening, some advice you would give them?
Yeah, a couple of things. So on a high level, every company does, product training, product and benefit training, right? But hardly any of them have an initiative specifically designed to make their sales force communication experts. They're all product experts, industry experts. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like when I got picked up to do a keynote in San Diego with Bank of America several years ago, it was because I said, I'm going to come down for free and I'm going to talk to your top producers. And they said, okay, fine. If you can convince them, we'll do it. So great. Because their thing was Bank of America spends $1.2 trillion, $1.2 million a year in California, I think she said, on training alone.
Wow.
Why would they want to bring on some, guy they've never heard of? Makes sense. So I went to the top producers, and it took me 30 minutes to get them to self-realize why it was that they were still losing 60% of their qualified customers to other companies when they were Bank of America customers to begin with.
Wow.
Right? And they finally were able to give me a list of reasons of the reasons customers would go somewhere else to shop. And then I turned to the district manager and I said, and what training does Bank of America have for those scenarios? And she said, none.
Yikes.
All of our training is around our product and brand. Another thing I ask sales professionals, I've got 10 years experience. How about you? 18 years experience. How about you? I'm new, 2 years experience. Have you ever been in a sales interview and this person said, wow, you've got 10 years in sales. What form of study do you do?
Yeah, no, never.
They always say, what's your experience? Where did you work? Experience, especially in sales, is the slowest effing way to learn. And you risk, for 99% of the people, it's actually working against you in the new economy because it means that you are constantly being programmed and conditioned only by the outdated skills and talents of the people around you.
Wow.
And if you become a top producer in that office, that's even worse, because now you're being rewarded for being a little bit better than the guy who's a little bit below average. And your potential might be way up here. You get rewarded right here. And then on a bigger scale, now the whole company thinks that's impressive.
Yeah.
When really this girl could have been up here.
Yeah.
And so they get stuck in that matrix. The second thing, aside from that, is my number one rule of closing business ethically in the new economy is the one who understands the customer the best will get the customer's commitment. And the precursor to that is people no longer tolerate the feeling of being sold. This is really important. I'm going to slow down on this part. They no longer want the feeling of being sold. They want to be understood first. Before you talk about your product, before you make a recommendation, before you just start running your mouth about all the features of this thing. First, they want to be understood. Then, once they are completely understood, then you help them understand what the right decision is. You don't blend the two.
Yeah.
Every time the customer says something, you're like, and that's another reason why and then they mention something else. And and I'm glad you mentioned that because I really want to show you.
Yeah.
That's why I don't agree with some of the other famous sales trainers out there, because the last time they sold was in their own business, which was over a decade ago.
Yeah, it's changed a lot. People are a lot more skeptical right
And what
now.
I do with my clients, even if I've never worked in their industry, within 2 or 3 months or so, once I'm developing the content, is I schedule field days and I go out and I grab their phones or I go into the field and I sell with them.
Yeah.
And, in those scenarios, once I've developed our conversation flow, I have over a 90% closing ratio.
Wow.
In those scenarios.
It's amazing.
And the thing is this, now people get this mistaken. So for those of you who are really listening to this and give up about your life and career, people go, yeah, it's all about listening. You got to have good lists. That's not what I'm saying. That's freaking old school, generic. That's not a skill. It's a fundamental. Yes, you have to listen. What this means is control yourself from just wanting to keep going back to information.
Yeah.
And instead, develop a conversation that is literally 100% just question and conversation based. And then design your questions with your close in mind. Not qualifying questions, listen to me, not qualifying questions. And not needs questions. Well, we do that, Joe. We do that. We do our needs questions. Now, there's two things here. Number one, your qualifying questions This is really important, dude. You might be able to sell this podcast. Your qualifying questions and your needs questions are sales patterns. What does that mean? That means people have memorized them. They're resistant to them. You're inspiring them to shop. Our questions, we have really good questions. Where'd you learn those questions? You learned them from your industry. So you ask yourself this determining question if you all want to write it down. Every time you ask a question, use a closing strategy, have a greeting, a transition, a tie down, whatever it is you're doing, ask yourself this question. Who else in my industry says this?
Mm.
And what we find over 90% of the time is
Everyone else.
Everyone. Right? People are like, damn, everyone. Literally, I feel like my first day at people's companies when I'm doing the opening workshop, which is called The Awakening, named after my awakening, I swear like people start having like a mid-career crisis in the room. Like, oh my God, I've been doing this all the time, right? And they're not aware. So now they're awoken. Now they're like, now what do I say? And then I'm like, shall we begin?
Oh, I love this. I'm fired up.
You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of how it goes. And then, you know, for those who you know, are in an element of their life where they really do want to double and triple their income, they do. And there are some people who, you know, after I've earned their trust and respect over time, like, you know, I don't really care about doing all of this. You know, I took a lot of things that I've learned and I like a few things. I use them all the time and they help me. But Joe, I don't care to double my income or triple my income. I don't want to be put under that kind of pressure. And I'm like, dude, I'm so glad you said that because there's no need to pressure you then.
Yeah.
But if you come up to me and you say that, hey, you know, I need to change where I live. I need to provide for my family. I have a kid on the way. I have a wedding coming up. I have parents that I want to provide for because they've been working their whole lives and I don't want them to have to work at a late age. If you're going to come up to me and talk that kind of game, then you better be ready because I'm going to drive your ass to the top.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
And
It's like,
and it's not going to be pretty in the beginning, but I've never had anybody walk up to me and say, that guy, I hate that guy. He's the one who doubled my life.
Oh yeah. No, never. Never. And I love what you were just saying too, because I feel like if you're looking at, you create this statement and you're like, you think about who else in my industry is using this exact same statement. It made me think of this amazing story. My first year in real estate, I'm sitting in the back of a huge mortgage seminar with a room packed full of real estate agents, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what the guest speaker does, he sends 3 people outside of the room. One at a time, they come in and he's pretending to be like he's getting pitched as
I've seen this before,
the sellers, right?
Yeah.
One person go, oh, my customer service, I've been doing this for this amount of years. I know the area. I grew up here. And then they sit down, right? So the audience is like, okay, all right. Would have said some of the similar stuff. Second person comes in, my customer service, my experience. I lived in the area, my brokerage. Third person comes in. At this point, every real estate agent in the room is like, oh,
laughing their ass off, right?
And then they go, well, it's always the last person who goes on the listing presentation is going to win if we're all saying the same stuff, you know? And I think with what I'm resonating with what you're saying is like, I think that's great that you come from, maybe you're not within that industry, but you're giving advice kind of as a third party person. And I feel like for me coming into real estate, that's why I had success. I came from a fitness background. I looked at, you know, real estate totally different than everyone else. I'm like, why have they been doing that way? And they're like, well, we've always done it that way.
Well, here's what happened, dude. Realize how early in your real estate career did you go to that seminar?
Oh, I probably went maybe month 6. So I would say halfway into my first year.
Okay, so that's pretty early when you're talking about 20 years of experience, right?
Yeah.
Now let's say that you hadn't come across that. And instead you just started working in a real estate office for 2 or 3 years. Eventually you would become like your environment.
Yeah, that's true.
So that triggered you to shift a bit. And even when you go to those seminars, what you have to be careful of is you have to constantly self-evaluate, because you can get into that and then all of a sudden you notice you start writing similar things on your business cards and you start writing similar things in your emails and you start going to the same networking events and you fall right back into patterns again. But that's a cool story. And I've seen that done in all types of different workshops in different industries to prove that, you know, you're not as good as you think you are.
Yeah, I know I wanted to share that because I thought, that was
Yeah.
perfect to what you were saying.
Yeah.
For everyone who's listening too, because I think a lot of it is, all right, knowing the product, that's kind of old news. It's like, how do I differentiate myself? One of those things that I feel like for me helps me is my morning routine. I feel like that helps shape my mind. So the whole day I'm on another level. Do you mind sharing for everyone, like kind of what is some of the things you do in your morning routine? I've noticed a lot of successful people have a very strict morning routine. So if you mind sharing.
Yeah, I want to say that mine is super strict. I think we've over exaggerated the morning routine. It's another pattern.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, I do this every morning, every morning. And I want to call that person. I'm like, dude, I know you, bro. You don't do that shit every morning, bro.
Yeah.
When you're having a good one, you do it. Tell people that sometimes you mess up and you don't do it every morning. Tell them. That's how I feel about that. But I just try to simplify. For me, it's simplify. I don't have that, career or lifestyle where, I meditate for 30 minutes in the morning or I read a book first thing in the morning. I do my best to manage my days according to what my priorities are.
Yeah.
Knowing that the unarguables in my life are, making sure my nutrition is 95% on point with about 5% for splurging, and having the dinner that I want or going out for a couple of drinks sometimes with my friends, whatever the case may be. But in the morning specifically, I wake up, first thing I do is I drink, some type of cleansing drink. I'll usually mix vinegar, turmeric, I'll have beet type drinks. I'll have lemon juice type drinks, all just, high quality water and made in my kitchen.
Yeah.
And then I begin, then I start thinking, what is my activity level today? What is my training like today? And I start eating according to that. I'm sure you know how that goes.
Yeah, of course.
So if I'm going to have a super, super intense day, I up my calories a little bit, not too much. Think about what the timing is going to be. When's the next time I'm most likely to eat? And I'll gauge it that way. I'm not this breakfast, lunch, dinner guy. That was created by society, not by high performance people.
Oh, wow. I love that.
So I eat according to my activity level and my intensity level. If I know I'm going to be speaking for an extended period of time, I do not eat hardly any carbs. I stick to like fruits, vegetables, shakes, quick snacks that I can handle because I don't want my body spending a lot of time on digestion when I need that blood flow right up here.
Okay.
Same thing in sales. If I've got 6 hours of hardcore selling and I go and eat a chicken bowl and that chicken bowl is filled with, 8 ounces of brown rice, I guarantee you your numbers are not going to be as good from 2 to 5 p.m.
Wow.
Because you're not dispositioning your energy levels correctly for the sport that you're in.
Wow.
So just like little things that aren't really that hard to learn. Like, oh, that's so much, bro. Like there's so much to change. People are just so overwhelmed with change. Like so much change. I'm like, no, it's like 2 or 3 things. Like just practice it a little bit.
Yeah, just have them available in your fridge or in your cabinet.
Yeah.
You have to be the first person I've ever heard who kind of bases their morning and what they eat based off their day. And I love that. And it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
It totally does.
Yeah. Am I going to be, training legs this afternoon at the gym? Okay. I better have a bowl of oatmeal this morning. I better stack up some reserves. I better try to see. I also know that sometimes I feel mentally burnt out in the afternoon, emotionally burnt out because I've been pouring my heart out all day long. And I know that sometimes my mind will trick my body that it's tired, and it's not. It's my mind that's tired. So I know not to have my coffee in the morning, have it at 3 p.m. So that way I give my mind a little boost before I go to the gym so it doesn't try to trick me. So there's all these types of little nuances, right, that you just kind of pick up when. But let me get back to your other question, which was, how do you get ahead of the rest, right? How do you make sure you're prepared? And, I've said this on pretty much every single show. I say it on my stories sometimes. I say it on Instagram. I say it constantly. We're not saying it enough. If I could say it 1 million more times a day, I would, because that's what it would take to compete with the news, with the media, with the Kardashians, with, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's just so much that's constantly in your face, that's fun and kind of cool and entertaining, but does absolutely nothing to improve your value as an individual. You know, like everybody knows what, you know, the best brands are and the fanciest watch, and, you know, how much different makeup brands are, and where to get good deals on, you know, skinny tea, and, you know what I mean? All this stuff, they know all this stuff. But when the shit hits the fan and you're in an economy like this, now who are you? Now who's going to pay you? Anybody can make money in an easy economy. So how do you become economy proof? Is you start to factor into your daily routine. It doesn't have to be every day. I like to say 3 to 4 days a week. Designated time for accelerated learning. Well, what do I need to be learning? Well, either you need to be thinking 2 to 3 years ahead in your industry. You need to be thinking, if something happens, what is another skill that I can shift into, I can pivot into really, really fast, right? I have friends that are hairstylists. I mean, right?
Yeah.
You know, friends that are fitness training. Great. You can still do fitness training online.
Of course.
There's millions of people in this country. However, it's not going to be, you know, the number one expense that people have to have if they got to feed their kids. So what's your other skill?
Yeah.
And that's why I always direct people back to being a professional communication expert. Because if you study communication and people and behavior and these types of things and those types of trainings and mentors, then, and you get really, really good, meaning you're just become a very, very good communicator with people, then every industry wants you.
I love it.
Very, very few industries will turn you away. But if your company lays you off and they sell something, what does that mean?
Yeah.
We don't need you.
Yeah.
We don't need you.
So
Either
true.
you're not good enough, or the skill that you provide is no longer important. And I think that's a hard awakening for a lot of people, but it's gonna happen one way or another, either by force or by choice. So I prefer by choice, because by choice you're in control. By force, the economy's in control.
Yeah. I think one thing I always do at the end of my podcast is to ask my guest speaker, you know, 3 takeaways for the audience. And I think you totally gave them away right there. And it was perfect. I mean, I didn't even have to ask you the question. You told them the importance of kind of in the morning. I think about what I'm going to eat to have the right amount of energy for the day. Number 2, you were talking about, within the communication, how important communication is. And well, I would guess that would be like the educational part. Like, what else are you learning 3 to 4 times a week to advance where you're at? Maybe, you know, you're a fitness trainer, but I'm spending time learning more about sales or
Yeah, you know how
creating.
there's that thing on your phone that can tell you how much time you spend on social media?
Yeah.
I often tell people, just take 20% of that time and choose 3 topics that you feel are good topics for you to pivot to, or that you need to advance your own career, and set an alarm and switch over to that.
Yeah, that's so smart. And then always enhancing communication. I think one thing, you know, being a student athlete, when I played football, I was a communications major, you know, kines minor.
Mm-hmm.
I'd never realized how important that communications major was until now. Like the amount of speeches and memorization, nonverbal skills, body language, reading, I mean, mirroring, all these things are like so important now. But now with YouTube and TED Talks, like you can start learning all this stuff that, you know, you don't have to have a communications degree to learn this stuff.
What I say yesterday, I was so excited yesterday, man, because I was like, oh, I'm gonna go to the car wash. You know, it's amazing how all these things that we did on a weekly basis seem like
Now we're excited about. Yeah.
So excited. I think I had to go to Staples last week to get another Ethernet cord, and I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna go to Staples. and so with that, I remember what I said. I said social media and the internet has just become the greatest university in the world. Way better than Harvard, way better than MIT, way better. Like, well, those schools are important. Yeah, they do. They do have really good programs and interaction with great people. The networking, I think, and the project-based stuff is what's most important about those. However, networking over the internet or getting to become friends with somebody, a mentor in New York who doesn't have time for you, is easier than it ever has been before.
Yeah.
And so I just, my big thing to people is stop being a zombie. There's this thing I call copycat culture. And it also includes, the idea that people make less than 1% of their decisions on their own. They're constantly being influenced by something. I'll give you an example. Guys who and I'm guilty, who have Hermes belts. Girls who love red bottoms. People who are getting the exact same cosmetic surgeries. Same. Who are you?
Yeah.
Who are you? You're everyone else. You're not yourself. And I also believe in self-improvement and keeping yourself looking good and feeling good. And, these things are okay. I mean, it's cool that we have technology and ability to do that as people if we want to feel better. But the point I'm making is not, doing it for yourself is wrong. The point I'm making is wake up.
Yeah.
You are constantly being influenced by everything and everyone around you. And now, the masses, the people who are in control of the masses know that. They know that the majority of you can be very, very easily convinced. It happens to me all the time. Sometimes when I go to the gas station, I still look at Smart Water and think, what?
Oh, this is nice. Get smart. Yeah.
Dude, if I drink this, I'll be smart.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, that's a silly example, but, that's the main thing, is to think for yourself, think about your priorities, try to look at least, maybe 1 to 2 years into the future. You don't have to be this 30-year planner, because long-term planning is really difficult to do because the world is changing too fast. Everything's changing so fast. But just be on your toes, think for yourself, ask yourself, does this agree with my personal rules and values? Does this agree with who I am? Does this agree with my faith? And yes, like me, you're still going to screw it up like 50% of the time or more. But at least you know that you're screwing it up, as opposed to screwing it up and thinking that it's normal.
I love it. I mean, I think that's a great way to end right there. I just want to thank you too, Joe, for coming on, and for everybody who's listening. I want you to be able to get in touch with Joe or to follow him on social media. So, Joe, what's your Instagram handle? Is that the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Yeah, it's just going to be like that for a while. Joe Coach, one word, Joe Coach.
Perfect. And I'm going to tag him on Instagram too for this podcast episode. So you guys all stay blessed. And once again, Joe, thank you
Yeah,
for
thanks,
your
bro.
time.
Appreciate you.
All right.
Take care.
All right. Bye.